The church doors closed with a heavy echo, and in that sudden silence, every whispered doubt, every judgment, and every unspoken question hung in the air like a held breath. No one could understand why Margaret Collins, a respected woman with a steady job, a gentle reputation, and a future that once seemed predictable, had just married a homeless man. Faces stiffened, smiles faded, and curiosity burned hotter than celebration. What none of them knew was that the real shock was still waiting, quietly, patiently, for the night to fall. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and love that dares to defy expectations, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who believes in hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that compassion can change lives. Margaret's life had once followed neat lines, the kind that made sense to everyone else. She lived in Cleveland, Ohio, in a modest apartment filled with soft light and old books, the kind of place where evenings felt calm and predictable. She worked as a hospital administrator, a role that demanded order, patience, and empathy. Her days were long but meaningful, her nights quiet but lonely. Years earlier, she had imagined marriage, children, and shared holidays, but time passed, relationships faded, and eventually she learned to live with the ache rather than fight it. Her world changed on a bitter winter evening when she noticed a man sitting near the hospital entrance, wrapped in a worn coat that looked too thin for the cold. His hair was untrimmed, his beard uneven, but his posture was calm, almost dignified. His name, she later learned, was Thomas Reed. He never begged aggressively or raised his voice. He simply sat holding a cardboard sign, eyes filled with a tired patience that stayed with her long after she walked inside. At first, Margaret did what many people do. She brought food, sometimes coffee, sometimes a warm sandwich, she told herself. It was charity, nothing more. But Thomas always thanked her with genuine gratitude, never entitlement. Over time, she began to notice the details others ignored. The way he spoke thoughtfully, the careful way he folded his coat, the sadness that crossed his face when he thought no one was watching. He was not broken in the way people assumed. He was simply worn down. Weeks turned into months, and Margaret found herself lingering longer each evening. She learned that Thomas had once been a civil engineer, married, stable, and hopeful. A workplace accident, medical debt, and the slow collapse of everything he knew had pushed him onto the streets. Pride had kept him from asking for help until there was nowhere left to go. His story was not dramatic in a way that invited pity. It was quiet, heavy, and painfully real. What unsettled Margaret most was how natural their conversations felt. She laughed more, she listened differently. Somewhere between shared silences and hesitant smiles, she realized that Thomas saw her, not her job, not her role, but the woman beneath it all, and that realization terrified her. The whispers began when Margaret helped Thomas find shelter, when she encouraged him to clean up, when she supported him through job applications and medical checkups. People warned her, gently at first, then more sharply. They questioned his intentions, her judgment, her sanity. Friends distanced themselves. Colleagues watched her with polite concern. Even her own family struggled to understand why she was investing so much in someone society had already dismissed. But love does not always arrive dressed in comfort. Sometimes it comes carrying weight, asking to be chosen anyway. When Thomas proposed, he did so quietly, without spectacle. There was no ring at first, only sincerity and fear. Margaret said yes through tears, fully aware of the storm it would cause. The wedding was small, held in a simple church with muted decorations and restrained applause. Some guests attended out of obligation, others out of curiosity. Few believed it would last. As Margaret walked down the aisle, she felt every stare, every judgment pressing into her back. Thomas stood waiting, cleaned up, standing straighter than most of the men in tailored suits behind him. In that moment, she felt a calm certainty she had never known before. She was not rescuing him, she was choosing him. That night, after the congratulations faded and the world seemed to hold its breath again, Margaret and Thomas returned to a modest hotel room paid for by her savings. The room was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes thoughts louder. This was the moment everyone speculated about, the moment people whispered would reveal regret, fear, or disappointment. Instead, it revealed truth. Thomas sat on the edge of the bed and removed a small worn folder from his bag. His hands trembled slightly, not with shame but with vulnerability. Inside were documents, certificates, and letters. Proof of a trust account set up years ago, untouched out of principle. Proof of an inheritance he had never claimed because it was tied to family members who had abandoned him in his darkest hour. Proof that he was not helpless, not empty-handed, but deeply wounded by pride and loss. The shock was not wealth, though there was more stability there than anyone imagined. The real shock was restraint. Thomas had chosen homelessness over dependence, silence over manipulation. He had allowed the world to think the worst of him because he no longer had the strength to defend himself. He told Margaret everything not to impress her, but because marriage demanded honesty, even when it hurt. Margaret wept, not from betrayal but from understanding. She saw how easily people are misjudged, how quickly dignity can be mistaken for deceit. That night was not about revelation for the world, but clarity for two souls who had already chosen each other. Life after marriage did not suddenly become easy. Thomas struggled. With routines, with crowds, with lingering fear that everything could vanish again. Margaret faced strained relationships and quiet exclusions, but together they built something steady. Thomas returned to work slowly, rebuilding confidence piece by piece. Margaret learned that love was not about fixing someone, but standing beside them while they healed themselves. They moved into a small house near the edge of the city, where mornings felt softer and evenings warmer. Neighbors were cautious at first, then curious, then accepting. Over time, stories faded, replaced by new impressions. Thomas fixing fences, Margaret tending the garden, both of them volunteering at shelters, not as saviors, but as witnesses to hope. The man once labeled homeless became a reminder that life can unravel without warning. The woman once judged for her choice became a quiet symbol of courage. Their marriage was not perfect, but it was honest, and honesty proved stronger than rumor. As years passed, Margaret often reflected on that wedding night, not as a moment of shock, but as the moment she truly understood what love costs and what it gives back. She had chosen compassion over comfort, faith over fear, and in return, she found a depth of connection no safe choice could have offered. If this story has touched your heart, if it reminded you that people are more than their circumstances, please take a moment now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach those who may need them most. Before this story ends, we have one special request for you. Please comment below what this story made you feel, or share your belief about second chances. Your words might inspire someone reading them today. Margaret and Thomas never set out to prove the world wrong. They simply chose to believe in each other when belief was scarce, and sometimes that is all it takes to turn a life around, to look beyond the surface, to love without guarantees, and to discover that the greatest shocks are not found in scandal, but in grace.